Okay, thank you, Charles. Hello, everyone. My name is Claudia Herrera. I work as a Business Resource Center Specialist in the Small Business Resource Center within the Department of Consumer and Regulatory Affairs. First and foremost, I want to thank our partner at the DC Small Business Development Center, Mr. Charles. Thank you for having us today, and I'm going to get my presentation started. So a little bit of what we do in the Small Business Resource Center is we provide free one-on-one assistance to businesses that are just starting off, growing, or that want to strengthen their business. So we provide these free one-on-one assistance through many of our partnerships within the Department of Consumer and Regulatory Affairs, along with other nonprofit and for-profit sector businesses and organizations within the District of Columbia. All of our one-on-one sessions and group webinars/workshops are free of charge. These partnerships assist current and future business owners with business development opportunities to properly do business in the District of Columbia. So there are 4 basic steps when it comes to obtaining a basic business license. The very first step is finding out how you want to structure your business, which leads us to our corporate registration. If you choose the avenue of creating an entity within the District of Columbia, whether it be a corporation, an LLC, a partnership, S Corp, C Corp, that would go through our corporations division as a corporate entity registration. Usually the fee for a corporate registration is $220. The other registration that you can fulfill when it comes to DCRA is a sole proprietorship. And if you're just looking to use a fictitious name in the District of Columbia, we consider that to be a trade name registration. The fee for a trade name registration is $55. You can also have both. Usually, sometimes businesses want to have an umbrella for their business, which is the corporate entity, and then they want to have a fictitious name under it. So you can have both, or you can function your business as the actual corporate entity itself. Step 2 is registering with the Internal Revenue Service and the DC Office of Tax and Revenue. When you're registering with the IRS, what you're going to apply for is called an employer identification number. This number is issued to the business itself when it's a corporate registration, or if you're a sole proprietorship, it's registered under your Social Security number. Once you have that registration complete with the IRS, your next step is to register with the DC Office of Tax and Revenue. What you're going to receive in return after you fill out the FR 500 form is a notice of business tax registration, letting us know that you're now registered in the District of Columbia. Another certification that you want to obtain from the DC Office of Tax and Revenue is called a clean hand certification. This is a signed affidavit that verifies that you do not owe more than $100 to the District of Columbia. This could be in fines, penalties, fees, tickets. Anything owed to the District of Columbia cannot exceed over $100. If it does, you'll need to either pay it off, bring it under $100, or be set on a payment plan. Step 3 is registration with the Office of the Zoning Administrator. So we need to know exactly where your business is being ran out of. If you're in a commercial location, such as a brick and mortar location in the District of Columbia, we'll need to see the certificate of occupancy for the office space that you may be using, or if you're opening up your own establishment, you would apply for your own certificate of occupancy. If you live in the District of Columbia and that's your primary residence, you can apply for a home occupation permit if you're using your home as your home-based office. The only caveat is that you cannot use more than 35% of the entire square footage of your home. There is a one-time fee for the home occupation permit of $72.60. And just to go back, when it comes to the IRS and DC Office of Tax and Revenue registration, there is no fee to register with both of those offices. You can also apply for the actual home occupation permit at the time that you're applying for the actual basic business license on our business portal. We call this the Expedited Home Occupation Permit. There's no additional fee to have the process expedited, but it makes the process more seamless when you're applying for the HOP at the same time that you're applying for the basic business license, which is actually the last step, our basic business license application. We have over 12 categories with over 165 different endorsements. So just depending on the actual business activity that you have will dictate what type of license you'll apply for when it comes to DCRA. And you can apply for it online on our business portal, mybusiness.dc.gov. This is our contact information, our main line. Our program manager over the Small Business Resource Center is Ms. Jacqueline Noisette, and we have 3 specialists, myself included, along with Joy and Tamika. You can meet with any of us when it comes to having a free one-on-one session to navigate you through each of these steps. But sometimes we feel that even though we're sharing this information on a type of platform like this, one-on-one assistance sometimes is better for some folks because they need to know exactly how their process works, because sometimes there are other agencies that can get involved, such as DC Health if it's anything food related, or if you're doing anything with alcohol, then you would probably need the Alcohol Beverage Regulation Administration. And you can register for a one-on-one session on our website, which is listed right there on Register for Events. Are there any questions?
Nothing so far in the chat room, Claudia.
Okay. If anyone has a question, please feel free to drop it into the chat, or you can unmute yourself. Hello.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mickey Ward, and I just started an LLC business in Prince George County last year. And I wanted to know, will you share information of how I can also open up a business in DC? What other steps do I need to take?
So what is your business activity that you're performing?
Oh, I'm sorry. No, I'm muting myself again. Tutoring and childcare.
Okay. So when it comes to the tutoring services, are you tutoring minors or just tutoring people in general?
School aged, elementary.
Okay.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So one of the key things that you'll, one of the key agencies that you'll need to go through is the Office of the State Superintendent of Education, because since it's a program that's provided to school-aged children, the regulatory process will be a little bit different. They're the ones that actually issue, I believe it's a certificate, if not a license to you. But the registration will still come through us. So if you already are registered in another jurisdiction, such as you mentioned Maryland, we'll need to see a letter of good standing, making sure that you are in good standing with Maryland in order for you to register with DCRA's Corporations Division as a foreign entity. And the EIN number that you already should have with the IRS needs to be registered locally with the DC Office of Tax and Revenue. Depending on where your location is going to be, when you're registering with OSSI, they're going to want to know what the principal address for the business is.
Thank you.
You're welcome. A question was asked, I didn't get to screenshot steps 1 and 2. Will the recording be made available? I had this conversation with Charles right before we came on. So it is being recorded, and I will be sharing a copy of today's presentation with Charles, and I think he'll be sending it to you all.
Yes, we will. We do have one question in the chat area. Can you say something about the things you have to do every year, like filing and other paperwork, and what to do to close down a business if it doesn't work out?
So when it comes to keeping up your due diligence, as we call it, with your business, if you have a corporate entity or a trade name registration, you have to file a biennial report. So the first report is always due by the first year. So let's say if you register your business by December 31st of 2021, your first report, which is essentially just a renewal, is due by April 1st, 2022. And then the 2-year cycle starts thereafter. Your actual license is good for 2 years, or if you apply for a 4-year license, and it expires within the same month in which you applied. And if you wish to close down a business, you would first need to dissolve the business with our corporations division. So you would file a dissolution, and then when it comes to IRS and tax and revenue, you're going to want them to freeze your account. And your license, you're basically just going to be canceling it.
Here's another question, Claudia. If my LLC is filed in Texas and I operate in DC, hold on, it jumped up there. Here we go. If my LLC is filed in Texas and I operate in DC, am I required to register in DC as a foreign entity?
The only time that you're required to register in DC is if you're operating in DC, as you mentioned. So yes, you're going to be filing as a foreign entity. So we would need to see a letter of good standing from Texas.
Great. Is also another question, is there a way to find out if another business in DC, such as in a database, has the same name as yours to avoid any possible lawsuits?
Yes. So through our corporate online portal, which is, I believe, in our first slide deck, I'll go back to that one. You would go to corporateonline.dcra.dc.gov, and at the bottom, you can run a search. If no results are available, then that means that your name is available. But if a name search does come up, then that means that that name is already taken.
The next question here is, I'm interested in starting a business in DC as a practicing professional engineer who will provide engineering services. Are there any particulars related that I should be aware of with starting this business? And also a follow-on is, any DC area contacts to follow up with would be helpful.
So when you say you're going to be in providing engineering services, are you just being a consultant, or are you an actual engineer? So if it's the first portion, then that would fall under our general business licensing category. But if you're functioning as an actual engineer, then that would fall under our professional licensing category. So we have two different licenses when it comes to being licensed through DCRA. The first one would be basic business licensing. The other one is if you have a certain profession, which would be professional licensing. And when it comes to any DC area contacts, it just all depends on where you are in your needs. So what we provide at DCRA in the Small Business Resource Center is the navigating your steps through our regulatory process, from registration, permitting, and licensing of your business. But there are other agencies out there, such as the Department of Small and Local Business Development, that helps all businesses in the District of Columbia that have an array of different programs.
Next question is, if a business scope expands to cover more than what was in the original scope, at what point does the basic business license application change?
It would change at that point. So if you're going outside of the scope of the license that you apply for instance, if I started off with just providing consultation services, but I wanted to start making cupcakes, that falls under a different licensing category. So it could be a time where you need to apply for multiple licenses. But if I'm a consultant, but then I want to become a teacher, like I'm just providing teaching services, then that still falls under a general business licensing category. So it just all depends on the actual activity, which will dictate if you need additional licensing or if you can remain within the same license.
Great. We have a nonprofit question here. What is duration and additional documents to obtain a 501c3 classification?
So we don't recognize the actual classification. That's through the federal government and with the Internal Revenue Service. We only recognize the actual entity that you're establishing, whether it be a for-profit or a nonprofit.
And I believe that's for the federal level, that's a separate application. And I believe that form is a form 1023, I believe, to file a nonprofit with the federal government. And someone asked, will you share the slides? And yes, we will share the slide deck, and we're recording this, and it'll be posted on the DC Small Business Development Center website at some point. And no other questions so far. Actually, we have one just pop up. I'm starting a lottery business. How do I go about getting a business license?
So lottery business are commissioned through the DC Office of Tax and Revenue and also our DC Lottery Commission. So you'll still go through the registration process with our corporations division, whether you're doing a corporate entity or a sole proprietorship. Still register with IRS and Tax and Revenue, but when it comes to the actual licensing, that goes through Tax and Revenue and DC's Lottery Commission.
Great. No other questions so far?
I was going to ask one. Could you give me a little bit of information about what the timelines for these steps look like in terms of, waiting to hear back once you apply or submit your information?
Yes, so that's actually a really good question. Each step has its own timeline. So when it comes to registering with our corporations division, usually it takes between 5 to 7 business days for it to process and be approved. IRS usually takes up to 24 hours to issue the business an EIN number. Then that number needs to be registered locally with the DC Office of Tax and Revenue, which takes anywhere between 3 to 5 business days. Depending on the licensing category that you're applying for, it can take anywhere between 24 and 48 hours to up to 30 business days to be approved for a license.
Claudia, there's another question in here, and given the size of our audience too, feel free to unmute, but I'm going to go ahead and pull this one from the chat. I guess someone was looking for the form, trying to identify a specific form. You said a 410 or 423 form? I don't recall mentioning that, or I don't recall you mentioning that form.
That sounds like a tax form. None of our forms have numbers on them per se, especially when it comes to filling out applications online. When it comes to corporations, there are different forms such as like the DLC one, which is for an LLC registration, but that's if you're doing the actual paper format.
And just to quickly add there, it was a question to you, Charles, since you mentioned it right after the nonprofit. I was trying to get the right numbers.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought it was related to through DC registration. I believe, and don't quote me, I believe the form to register or to apply for 501c3 or 501c status is 1023. But I would encourage you, go to the IRS website and you can put in a question in the search area, and they should be able to tell you the correct form or forms that you need to complete for registration or for applying as a nonprofit.
Thank you.
No new questions so far, Claudia. Anyone else, feel free to unmute if you have a question. Oh, here we go. Does DC acknowledge B Corps?
No. So we only acknowledge the actual corporation. When it comes to the actual status of the corporation, that's on a federal level with the IRS.
Do you also give advice on the type of entity to use?
So unfortunately we don't, but that's why we have different partnerships around the city. So the main one that we usually refer to, because this is more of a legal advice question, we have a partnership with the DC Bar Pro Bono Center, which they can offer you free legal advice depending on what your business is, and they can let you know what best entity structure best suits your business.
Great. And also let folks know too, we have a partnership with DCRA. We offer business counseling there. Well, pre-pandemic, we offered business counseling physically at DCRA, but we offer it virtually and still have that partnership where you can get free counseling through us, the DC SBDC, through DCRA. So that's available.
Yep, and those counseling services are provided from DC SBDC every first, second, and fourth Wednesday of the month.
And I'll put our website in there. For those of you who are not currently DC SBDC clients, you may be just on our mailing list for classes or for webinars. We do you can get services. Just go to our website, and when you get to the website, just select new client, and then it takes about 5 to 10 minutes just to sign up for our services. Typically within about 48 hours, we'll respond back, and we'll assign you to a counselor. I don't see any additional questions so far. If anybody else has a question, feel free to unmute. Claudia, it looks like you're muted there.
Sorry, I wanted to go back to the slide where our contact information is available.
Great. And I think somebody was about to ask a question.
Yes.
Mhm.
Hello. Yeah, I'm the one who asked the question about being an engineer, starting a business in Washington, D.C. And so thanks for that answer. So I think I would be doing it as a licensed engineer. And I was wondering also what business entity type is recommended.
So we can't recommend what entity type you can go after. That's why we do have the partnership with the DC Bar Pro Bono Center, so they can let you know which one is better suited for you. We can just let you know what structures you can apply for when it comes to DC's corporations division. But when it comes to the actual license itself, that goes through our professional licensing. I believe it's the Trade Commission. You would have to go through the testing before you can actually apply for the actual professional license. But usually when it comes to the registration process, we do have a corporate structure that's called a professional limited liability corporation, but that's just all dependent on how you want to structure your business. So I would highly suggest definitely getting in touch with the DC Bar Pro Bono Center if you needed legal advice on how to structure your business.
Claudia, I'm going to ask a question that some folks may want to ask, and that is, if I'm getting a home occupancy permit, given the pandemic, how is that being handled these days?
So our home occupation permits are just approved based off of the information that we already have on record. We never perform inspections when it comes to our home occupation permits.
Okay. For anybody who's also a food service or a restaurateur, are there any special things they need to know in terms of licensing, permitting, and so on?
So if they're opening up an actual establishment in the District of Columbia, definitely letting us know where your location is going to be, because even though you may be in a commercial zone location, it doesn't mean that you can open up that specific establishment at that location. So definitely consulting with our zoning division to make sure that you can have that business there, and also consulting with the DC Health, because you want to know what requirements you need for your food-based establishment.
And also, just to add to that, and I'm going to put in a little bit of a shameless plug for DC SBDC. We also, if you are looking at a food business, we do have an expert on that's worked with us. Her name is Carolina Gomez, and she is our food expert, and she works with our food-based businesses. And she also works with conjunction with Claudia and others, other departments, and can provide you information on everything that you need to do around starting up that food-based business. It looks like we have another question in the chat here. Does a foreign entity LLC require a registered agent in DC? Is there one appointed for the LLC in another state?
Yes, so you do need a valid registered agent in the District of Columbia. This can either be a commercial or a non-commercial registered agent. And if you live in the District of Columbia and your address in DC is your primary residence, you can function as your own registered agent. But if you're using a commercial registered agent, you can choose one on your own, or we have a pre-selected menu for you to choose from. We just usually ask you to do your research on them because they do come with a fee.
Great. Don't see any additional questions. If anybody has a question, again, you can either put it in the chat or feel free to unmute. I'm a little bit of a slow typist, so feel free to unmute if you feel the question is longer than a quick chat entry. We have an easy group today. Here we go. We have one in the chat. Will business addresses, with regards to business addresses, does Sbrc accept virtual addresses?
So unfortunately, we don't. It has to be a physical address. If you're using a virtual address, it does have to come with like a physical address. We don't accept anything like PO boxes.
I have a question as a follow-up to that.
Okay.
If it has to be a physical address and it can't be a PO box, do you have a list of potential places that would host a small business if we're trying to keep costs down for rent?
So we can't make any recommendations on where your premise address can be. And the reason for that is because since we license all of the businesses in the District of Columbia, it becomes a conflict of interest for us.
Here's another question here. I need to legally rent my English basement. I need a basic business license. Who should I reach out to first to figure out these steps? And is there a different license than if I choose to do Airbnb?
Yes. So we need to know how you want to rent it out. If you're going to be going the Airbnb route, or if you're just going to be renting it out long term to a person and or family. If it's the latter part, it would go through our basic business licensing, and that would be a one family rental. If you're going through Airbnb, we need to know the length of time for which you're going to be Airbnb the basement out. If it's for a week, if it's for a month, 90 days, because it can fall under different categories. So unfortunately, legislation has yet to pass for our Airbnb rental. So we're issuing either a one family, two family, or bed and breakfast license. So it just all depends on the length of time.
Next question in the chat is, are there grant monies to help us getting started with our business? And that's a that's a wide question. There's some city-based grant funding, including Great Streets, Dream Grant, and there's others. Those are two of several of them. They are seasonal grants and are tied to specific areas within DC. But those are two of the myriad of grants related to helping you get started with your business. Now, I will say this, many of these grants, if you're just starting out, many of these grants are for existing businesses and not for startups. Those are more of a specialty area. What I would encourage you to do, Lena, is to probably get in touch with your DCSBDC advisor, and they can provide some guidance on specific grants for your situation. And somebody asked about Carolina's information. What I will do, Linda, I see that you asked that question. I copied this down. I'll make sure you get her contact information. And Lena, I see that you you mentioned that you don't have a counsel right now. We'll work on getting that established. I don't see any other questions. Again, feel free to put something in the chat area or to unmute.
Yes, hi, Caroline. Claudia, excuse me.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. So I'm thinking about creating a nonprofit and positioning it in Washington, D.C. Once I get it established with the federal government, is there a certain specific time frame that I have to reside in the district before I can qualify for SBA 8A loans?
Well, that's with the federal government. We only
That's still
do,
okay.
we only have control over the District of Columbia regulatory process.
And there's actually a several questions to unwrap in there. So 8A is a federal level certification through the SBA. You have to be in business for at least 2 years and meet the qualifications that they've established. If you go to the SBA website, sba.gov, they list and then look up 8A, the quals for that are listed there. I would encourage you, if you're looking at 8A, to do your research in advance of applying for it. Even if you do qualify in criteria for 8A, you want to see if there are opportunities within the 8A realm that apply to what you do as a nonprofit. In some cases, some nonprofits cannot apply for some contracts. It's usually for for-profit businesses only. But again, it's a case-by-case basis.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So, regardless if it's on the federal level or if it's at the district level, you still have to be in business for some time before you can qualify for any of this money, whether it's loan or grant money.
Well, again, it depends upon the loan or the grant. Loan situations, they vary. If you're talking about an SBA lending product, maybe a 7A or a 504 loan, there's criteria for that. And again, if you go to the SBA website, there's some information on those loan products. Keep in mind, with an SBA loan product, they work as a guarantor of the loan and not as the direct lender. So you would go to a preferred lender. Typically, many large banks and others, CDFIs, can offer SBA loan products.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll take a look at those things.
And again, I encourage you, if you don't have a SBDC counselor, I would encourage you to definitely to get one. I put our website in the chat area, and what you can do is just sign up for services and talk to your counselor about what your needs are in terms of a startup business, and they can guide you through a series of steps to help you make the right decisions.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions? Great. It looks like Claudia, we've answered all the questions. And did you have any more to add?
No, definitely. If anyone wants to have a one-on-one session, definitely feel free to reach out to me. I think when Charles sends out the PowerPoint presentation along with the recording, it'll have my contact information on there. So please feel free to reach out. Great.
And we also recognize that in some cases, there may be questions that are sensitive to your business and you may not want to share them on this broadcast. And obviously a one-on-one would be better in that situation. Mm-hmm. And again, we are going to, yes, William.
I've been on a couple of meetings with you with the QuickBooks, but I don't know if I was in a meeting with you this week or was it another one of your colleagues when I heard about when a lady asked a question about funding, and I may pronounce it wrong, but it seemed like a great vehicle. Kiva Club?
Yeah, Kiva, yeah, it's Kiva Zip is one flavor of Kiva, but there are some others. Right, and they are doing some crowdfunding, I believe.
Right. Yeah. And I was thinking maybe that young lady probably need to, or to maybe try to talk to somebody about with that also about funding for startups and because that was my first time even thinking about using crowdfunding. It just seemed like a good vehicle, and a lot of knowledge was given towards it.
Okay. Do you remember which broadcast that was on?
Hold on, let me go into my my email. Carmilla Nixon gave it, and it was DC Kiva Club at your initials kickoff. That's all I can see right now.
Yeah,
Business
that
and
was
DC.
through DSLBD. That wasn't through ourselves.
Oh,
So,
that was okay.
yeah, that was a notice sent out through us, but it was not. We didn't do that directly.
Okay.
So you would
Okay.
have to reach out to DSLBD regarding that event.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it looks like we have a couple other
Hello?
questions that just popped up here.
Hello?
Lena, I'll get to you in a second. I just want to answer these questions. Let's
Okay.
see. Oh, one question. Oh, Lena, I'm sorry. This is your question. It's in the chat area. Getting on the bid schedule. Are you talking about with Office of Contracting and Procurement?
No. So when I spoke with the commissioner, he told me I will have to get on a bid schedule.
Yeah, I would need a little bit more information regarding that.
Because they bid so often, and when they bid on which system they want to use.
Mhm.
And they said I had to go through you all to learn about the bidding information.
When you say through us, are you talking about the DC SPDC?
Yes, or DCRA, whoever handles the bidding. I have to get on their schedule. So like the GSA schedule, as well as.
Well, that's a federal level schedule.
Yeah, I
GSA is
know
a-
the
yeah.
GSA is. However, the bid schedule was on the state side, and one of you was doing one of these classes about it, but I couldn't hear at the time. I was driving, and I think it was you who was actually talking about the bid. So I couldn't really hear. I was driving at the time, and I was like, oh, I can't hear, I can't hear, I can't hear. And usually I can hear on my phone. But I said, okay, maybe I catch the class another time. And I've been reaching out, trying to find out about the bid schedule. This is my only thing that's holding me back, is trying to understand the bid.
Are you CBE certified in the district?
No, not yet. I'm trying to find my steps, because
Yeah,
I have to go through steps.
yeah. I would suggest if you can, and if you qualify, getting CBE certified. Then after that, you want to get onto the OCP, Office of Contracting and Procurement schedule.
Okay, so yeah, he did mention that. So that's, you say,
I think that's the bid schedule you're talking about. I think that's what
Okay.
you're referring to.
okay, so
Yeah.
can you give me those acronyms again? Is SBE and what was the other one? I'm writing it
Tell you
down.
what, if I could take this conversation offline with you,
Mm-hmm.
since it's not directly on topic with this, but I'll take that offline and reach out to you after the broadcast.
Okay, I appreciate it.
No problem. No
Great,
problem.
thank you. Bye-bye.
Any other related questions to DCRA? Great. Well, I guess at this point we are going to wrap up. Claudia, thank you for all that you do with regards to our clients, to small business clients throughout DC. And again, we will have the recording available. We'll post it on our website. And also we will send out the slide deck to everyone who attended the session today.
Great.
Great. Well, everyone have a great day, great rest of the week, and we will. You'll see something posted fairly soon on our website.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Claudia. Take care, everybody.